Very excited about these chapters. So today we're going to start with chapter 3, How Perception is Created. And I'll just read the little quote at the beginning that Jamie has in here from David Bohm. Thought creates the world, then says, I didn't do it. So this chapter for me, I don't know, it was like I picked up on the repetitive nature of the message and really took that as, Jamie's attempt to really bang home this point, because it's like, and the fact that this is early on in the book, I think is important, because it sets the tone for basically how the everything else kind of plays out. So maybe I'll pass it over to you guys to see what jumped out at you first in this chapter.
Yeah, for me, right from the beginning, I guess this is the bit that sort of hit me, if you like. He starts off with the in a dream, your mind continually creates and perceives a world simultaneously, so well that you don't feel your brain doing the creating. And like that in itself, in the reading thereof, I thought, I don't get that. Because effectively it was as if I was looking for that simultaneous bit that I couldn't see. I mean, how does that happen? It cannot be. So like, okay, well, I'll read on. And then as he says, in your waking experience of reality, your mind continuously creates and perceives a world simultaneously. So this is more his word. So well that you don't feel your mind doing the creating. He repeats it. And then I sort of go, yeah, because that is exactly what it is that we don't get most of the time. And it's the bit in the middle, which is the realization that you're doing it. So and then reading that and then thinking about that, I kind of realized that every time we as coaches, that's the bit that we're pointing to. It's the bit that we do have consciousness awareness, and it's in there, and it on a day-to-day basis looks like it's just not there. So how can you point somebody in a direction of something that isn't there, which is like really weird. And I must admit, it took me about an hour longer, I think, because I spent about an hour on that bit. But I don't even know if I gave myself an answer, except what I came up with is a question. So does awareness lie in the middle of all that? And then from that, as I asked the question, I'm wondering, well, maybe I'll see that further on. And like, is that sort of the crux of the matter? Is that it? The bit in the middle between, your mind and your perception. It's the bit in the middle. But I have no answer to what I just said. As I said, it was something to ponder. I'll be pondering on it probably for another week to come. Yeah.
Well, maybe by the time we're done discussing this chapter, you'll have your answer.
Well, maybe, yeah. And as I'm sitting here now, because of course I've read the chapter, I've noticed that it seems to be that way, but it's so fleeting and so not even momentary. It's less than a moment. It's milliseconds. It's milli something. That indeed, on a day-to-day basis, it's very hard to grasp. Therefore, the whole concept becomes very hard to grasp. Because the moment we start looking for something, again, you're back in your mind, well, where is it that, do I have to look in the fridge, or do I have to look somewhere else? And you've gone back into the concrete part of reality, which is certainly where experience will not come from, or it may appear to come from, but doesn't come from there. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, and just that kind of the idea that, well, if I could expand that space between reality and perception of it, if you like, then maybe I'd find a few answers like clarity and all that kind of stuff. And it's mentioned. He speaks about this later on. You know how we describe, but we will get to that later on. Actually, it's how everything is described. You know, it's the for me it was like it would be the Tao for the Oriental cultures, if you like. It's the Tao, or the void, and then nearer to us, it's the divine or the one or all this kind of thing. So it just like 3 lines got very philosophical for me. So I think I'll shut up now.
Yeah. But that's what's so interesting for me about doing this process this way is like if we were just reading this book normally, you would have read those 2 or 3 sentences and just moved on.
Yeah.
And not even given it a second thought, right? So
and it's exactly what I did do before we did this. It's exactly what I do. Yeah.
Cool.
It's exactly what I do when I want to keep going because I don't get it. So for me to go, yeah, really, I'm pretty sure the first time I read this, as with lots of paragraphs, I thought, yeah, I really don't get that. So I'll skip on and get back to it. Whilst you were speaking there, Elaine, and I have no, again, I don't have, as you don't seem to, I don't have the right answer either. But there was something came up for me, and I'm thinking about a conversation we had yesterday about, is this the bit between the knowing and the not knowing, or the seeing and the not seeing, if we're to use different language? That bit in the middle seems to be the bit that's, it's a bit harder to get our hands around, or if we're thinking about it intellectually, we just can't grasp it.
I've heard Elsie Spittle describe, Sid used to talk about that as knowing versus knowing. So it was like knowing with a lower case K versus knowing with like a capital K. Yeah. Interesting. Sorry if I threw your train.
No. I don't have any more to say about that. So that was what came up for me.
One of the things that jumped out at me was how many times Jamie has written 100%. Right. And again, I think I mentioned that earlier, like just banging this drum of, it means that 100% of your experience of the world out there is being generated from within. And then on the next page, 100% of your experience with the objects is being generated from the consciousness within you. Your entire experience of out there is taking place inside of you. It was funny. I had a massage yesterday and I was lying there, and it was kind of interesting because as I'm getting my back worked on, I'm like, I had the realization, oh, this is kind of like an insight friendly space, because I started coming up with ideas and thinking about stuff. Kind of like my physical body, I was just like kind of ignoring, because if you've ever had a deep tissue massage, like it's not necessarily the most pleasant thing. Yeah. So I was kind of in my happy place, ignoring what my body was going through and just thinking of things. So then I was thinking about this chapter, going back to like, oh, even my experience of this massage, like there's clearly a person standing over me, leaning into my muscles with all of their weight. And that's that force is coming from out there. But my experience of it, 100% of that is coming from within, through the principle of thought. And there's a number of times where she'd found like a knot or something that was particularly painful. And I was sitting, like lying there thinking like, oh, I'm making up this label of what this sensation means. Like, what if I just experience this feeling without the label? And it's not like I was trying to get into like I want this to feel good, but it was just like, what happens if I just don't immediately put this label of what I normally would on that sensation? Anyway, it was just kind of an amazing experience in the moment in the timing of having read this chapter and exploring this, like even that when you're, it's, and I think it's, to go back to a little bit of what Elaine was saying, like, I'm creating that experience in the moment, but I'm creating another experience of experiencing that experience in the moment too, and I'm creating that too. Like, our ability to create all these layers and levels simultaneously without even knowing we're doing it is incredible.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and I mean, I underlined as well the number of times that Jamie says that, and not only in this chapter, and so it goes on, as we will see. To the point where I was kind of thinking, oh, for God's sake, give me a break with this. I was sick of hearing. And then it sort of occurred to me, well, there must be something in this. And I realized what I was thinking. Well, yeah, I get that. But of course, every time I saw it written again, I thought, well, obviously there's something you're not getting that in this case, the author Jamie is saying that should create this experience, in this case, of slight irritation and slight boredom at the repetition, which indeed has been one of my very own characteristics. And I often experience irritation and boredom. Now there's a thing. And then the other thing, just because we're on the same page, the little box he puts in about perceptual adaptation, and he explains the experiment that the psychologist George Stratton performed wearing his inversion glasses. And as I was reading that, and the first time I read that, I thought, well, that's interesting and very, very interesting. And then the second time I read it, I thought, God almighty, that's actually scary, because I was actually imagining myself doing that thing, like suddenly waking up one morning and seeing everything upside down, and how, for me, was scary. And again, a most beautiful example of exactly what Jamie is saying. How can something I've just read in a book actually be scary? How can that be? But I promise you, I started feeling a little bit sick, because I could sort of imagine this strange feeling of being upside down. I could feel it. A bit like if you're suddenly in an aeroplane and it does some nosedive or something, or the roller coaster, and you go whooshing down somewhere. You're in a completely different visual sort of thing, which is connected to your ears and your balance and all the rest of it. Hence seasickness, let's say. I was literally feeling a little bit sick. And then, how can that be possible? So I thought, that's a beautiful example, if nothing, of exactly the number of times he repeats that you believe that your perceptual reality, or your reality, is like real.
Yeah, I like his metaphor of the special effects. It's the best special effects department in the world.
Yeah.
We fall for it every time.
Yeah. Here's the example. Yeah.
It made me think about something that happened this morning, and how we have emotion without realizing we've had a thought that's created the emotion. So I saw something that clearly caused something, and there were tears running down my face, but there was no time between the looking. I didn't see, I wasn't conscious that there was time between the looking and thinking. There was no like, oh, that's made me sad, or that made me something. I didn't have any thought associated to it. And all of a sudden there are tears streaming down my face. But I thought about it, because I'm like, okay, how did that happen? Without associating any thought to that image, I had an emotional reaction. So I was super curious about that. How it's rapid. Whatever happens is, our reactions are rapid. They're less than milliseconds, surely. For that to be the case, it's
instantaneous.
Instantaneous, yeah. It's just
It makes me think of, especially in today's culture, the idea of being triggered, right? And this notion that your experience of reality is created moment to moment from within your consciousness using the power of thought. Like somebody who's triggered is saying that whatever it is that triggered them is out there. And they have no part of it or no responsibility for it. Meanwhile, the truth is how it really works is 100% of that experience of being triggered came from them. It had nothing to do with the trigger itself. And it just made me think, like, especially in today's social media centric world, how powerful it would be if people woke up to the truth of this. We wouldn't have to tiptoe around each other or worry about all kinds of stuff that we worry about on a day-to-day basis. There's another line here. This is like several pages over from the first place where the 100% showed up, but here Jamie says, we each live in a psychological reality. Our perceptual experience is 100% mind-made using the reality principle, the power of thought. So again, just that 100% notion. And I'll tell you a story. Yesterday, my son came home from school. They had an award ceremony at school, giving out the awards for the previous school year. So he got an award for high honors, so over 90% plus average. And of course, my wife and I were like, oh, that's great. You work so hard and whatever. And later, we were in the kitchen alone, and he was saying, it's really not that big a deal. I don't even care that much that I got this award. And he goes, it's kind of weird. Like, it's almost like he wanted the award to mean more to him than it actually meant. And I go, oh, well, I have a theory about that. And he goes, oh, what's that? And I said, well, I think from a lot of the discussions we've had and stuff that your feeling of accomplishment and your motivation and all that doesn't come from outside of you. It comes from within you. Like it's nice to get a medal and get a recognition, but you don't need it. Your happiness and your sense of accomplishment isn't coming from the medal. Like, you didn't need this award ceremony to validate what you've done. Anyway, it was just like the kind of conversation 2 years ago I would never have imagined having with anybody, let alone my kid, about the nature of thought and where our experience comes from. So it was kind of cool to see how what I'm learning is kind of rubbing off in my family. So
nice.
I just need to interrupt very quickly and get my earphones, because otherwise we're going to get noise disturbance.
Okay, go for it.
Go ahead. The 100% is the non-negotiable, isn't it? I mean, that's basically what all these pages say.
I mean, I don't recall if Jamie says it in here, but when Jamie usually talks about it, he says 100% no exceptions.
Yeah. And that's where in so many pages of the book, I'm just like, yeah, kind of. There's this, it feels slippery, some of it.
Yeah.
Still to me, I get caught up, up.
Which is 100% natural. I think that's I don't want to say it's a trap necessarily, but it's what I've experienced myself and what I've seen with other people as they get, when you first start, at least this has been my experience. When I first started into this, you think, oh, I'm going to figure this out and I'll never fall into that trap again.
Yeah.
And then you keep falling for it. And then you go through this like period of time where it's like beating yourself up for like, how could I know this? Why am I falling for it again? And then there's like some level of frustration or judgment around it. And then for me anyway, it was like the realization, oh, like it's the special effects are so good. You're going to fall for it. So don't worry about it. Like it's, you don't even have to think about it or worry about it. It's just, and I don't know. I've often thought, like, when is it valuable to know that it's not an outside in world, right? So maybe the flip side of that, when is it valuable? So like when I'm suffering or when I'm in a bad feeling, when it's not serving me, for me, that's when it's valuable to know that, oh, it doesn't work that way. This is an inside job. And then I can fall out of that thinking. And the flip side of that is, but when I'm at a movie and really enjoying the movie, I don't want to know that it's just a movie. I want to think that this is real. Or when I'm in a great feeling with my family, I want to think that that feeling is coming from my family because it's such a good feeling. Like I don't need to, like when it's serving me or when it's good, I don't need to fall out of it. I can just bask in it. And it doesn't matter that I've fallen for the outside in illusion. So that's kind of where I've landed on too, is it like there are times when it's great to be caught in the outside in illusion. Like you don't have to, even though it works this way 100% of the time, you don't have to believe it 100% of the time.
Or worry about it.
Or worry about it 100% of the time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also I think when it's useful to see it is when it's not only for us, but if someone around us is going through something and we can see it for them, we don't necessarily have to point it out every time, but at least we can see it. And that stops us falling into a trap of so many things, I think. Yeah. That's
a great point because I don't know about you, but it's so much easier to see it for other people than it is to see it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow though, I think how we like as if Greg is saying like it's okay and there's nothing wrong with that. I see it like that, especially when the feeling is good. That's okay. But knowing that it doesn't work like that and seeing it when it doesn't work like that, and that 100% of the time it doesn't work out like that, because I'm thinking that those good feelings often can then lead to future bad feelings. You know, like, or should the circumstance provide for you something like loss of a loved one or anything as unpleasant, let's say, for want of a better word, as that, it also, the knowing that good or bad, they're never coming from anywhere else except inside of you, which it can keep you out of, like, you know, the big crash, if you like. Because if we keep on seeking in the same way that good feeling, knowing that it is indeed dependent, or believing that it's dependent on your outside circumstance, you know, we really are not prepared for that moment, let's say in the case of sudden loss of a loved one.
Yeah.
We're totally unprepared for that. And we're also totally unprepared for a natural disaster, which is way beyond anybody's control. You know, they're all out of our control. So again, you know, yeah, okay, have that feeling if that's what looks good, and get married and have your kids and go out for barbecues and do all those things and buy that car, have the house, do all of it. But just know that, you know, it's not where that good feeling is coming from.
Yeah.
And it sort of puts up, to me, it sort of puts kind of a balance on things, a nice little balance, you know, it's sort of keeping your boat on even keel sort of thing.
Yeah. The way you described that, it was kind of like it creates an upper and a lower limit on the bandwidth of it, right? Like it keeps you in that safe zone.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to read the thought experiment here, and then we can take a few minutes to play with that. So this is on page 42. Thought experiment. Take a few moments to look around you. Tune into whatever sounds you hear and become aware of any tactile sensations you can feel. What happens when you consider the fact that 100% of the experience of your senses is being generated by thought, moment to moment, that the fabric of your experiential reality out there is in fact being generated by your mind. So I just had one literally, because above the room that I'm recording this in is our master bedroom ensuite. And my wife's up there brushing her teeth or doing something, running the water. So like I just hear this noise of the water coming on, and I immediately jump in my head to thinking about like, how is this going to affect the recording? Is the microphone going to pick up that noise? Can't believe she's doing this. Like, she knows I'm recording this. And it just makes me laugh, like, kind of, Lynn, to your point, like the instantaneous nature of it. Like immediately I'm already into like a thought storm of stuff. And then no sooner am I caught up in it, and then the water shuts off and everything's fine and nothing, nothing's happened.
That's funny.
Except I put myself through the ringer for, 10 seconds.
I remember the first time we had this thought experiment in one of our sessions a long time with Jamie, and I literally sat there going, what? It made zero sense to me. The thoughts creating feelings and all of that, I'm cool with, but this, like, look around you, and I'm like, man, I'm not buying it. I don't get it. I just brain couldn't go there.
Mm.
And having read it now a gazillion times, I'm still not 100% there. I'm like, and I get your example there. That is a great example. But when I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing my exercise bag hanging on the, there it is. I'm seeing the exercise bag hanging on the door when I closed the door, and I was thinking, there it is. And I remember when I sat down getting a bit distracted, realizing I forgot I put that thing there, and I was looking for that last week. I never closed the door, rarely closed the door. There it is. Oh, how funny is that?
Yeah.
Okay. It was there the whole time.
Yeah.
That's very funny. Oh man, I'm red now. I'm actually embarrassed.
And my experience just going through that in my mind and, looking around and, classic housewife paranoia. I started seeing all the dust and oh my God, I'll have to do that. And then I sort of just moved on. I thought, well, I'm going to close my eyes and see what happens. And there was a moment where I had a kind of like, oh my goodness, I've got nothing to think about now. And it was like, so you better have something to think about, haven't you? Mm. And now that was really interesting, because with my eyes closed, it was almost as if like there's something telling me, well, you can't just hang around there and think of nothing. To think of something, and preferably something dusty or that needs a wash or a bit of a hoover or something like that. Really weird. It's this almost non-acceptance of that space where things do indeed come from. That it's almost something telling me like you're just not allowed to do that. Your creation is not able to do that. You can't have that thing. Which was sort of interesting. Just again, brief seconds, and then I'm out of it, and you think, oh yeah. But it was curious, the closing my eyes and thinking, which would have been wonderful had I let it go on for a bit longer. Like, well, now what am I thinking about? And I always remember Lynne often asks me that question when I'm in a state. Lynne will say, well, what's your next thought going to be? And I don't know. Like everything just drops away. Yeah. But having no guidance and being there on my own sort of thing, it was like, oh my goodness, I'm not thinking anything. And like that was terrible in itself. So weird. And then I snapped out of it, of course. But interesting. Interesting. If you can't see it, it's not there. Yeah.
Well, I love the notion of the one thought away kind of idea, right? Like you're one thought away. I forget the exact Sid Banks quote, but it's like, one thought away from mental health, or one thought away from clarity.
I think and Michael Neal, what is it? It's one thought away from happiness, I think, isn't it?
Or pretty much anything. I mean, think anything. Like we could be sitting here right now, you didn't realize you were one thought away of Greg from being a bit annoyed with your wife for brushing her teeth. You didn't know that was
exactly. Well, that's what's occurring to me with that notion is that the transient nature of thought, right? Like it's not permanent. Like I can be in a terrible mood one moment and in a perfectly fine or happy mood the next. Like I don't have to be locked in to whatever I'm feeling. Literally the 100% of your experience being created moment to moment. Like literally from one moment to the next, you can be feeling anything or thinking anything.
Yeah.
What just came to me when you said that there is when you call someone and you're like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm having a bad day. I mean, I am having a bad day. Like somehow the day is, doing something to us, them, whatever. We think that ourselves. You get up and I'm having a bad day. And then when you think about it like this and you're like, okay, and then so what's different from today from yesterday, or what's different from this moment than 10 minutes ago? Because the good mood, bad mood, they're so fleeting and changeable that it's almost kind of funny when you think about it that that's us, we're blaming the day for us not feeling good, like the day's what's the day doing? It's just a day. But that's weird.
Well, let's wrap up chapter 3 there.